Hello, my friends. My name is Gerdes. This is the Daily Brief. I'm just a professor trying to provide you with context in the war in Ukraine. Okay, so first article we're going to start with today is Shadow of War hangs over Orthodox Easter as Zelensky and Putin mark the holiday. Both Orthodox Christian countries, primarily, Patriarch Kirill in Russia prayed for the protection of the sacred borders. The sacred borders. Did they end where Russia was or where Russia is claiming to be right now? So he's claiming to pray for the protection of, I guess, all of Donetsk and Luhansk, which they don't actually control, of Russia, and express hope that God would halt the, quote, internecine strife, unquote, between Russia and Ukraine. But it could be halted immediately if Russia just stopped fighting in their neighbor's country. Okay, let's look at losses of the Russian occupiers in Ukraine. 860 is a low comparatively to what's been going on in the last week. Yesterday, I think it was 1260 or something along those lines. It's been north of 1,000 for about a week or so, so this has dropped just a touch yesterday. That doesn't mean the fighting is over or pausing or anything, but it's a little bit lower. Andrew Perpetua does a great job trying to identify losses on both sides. It's pretty even yesterday, which isn't good. The other day was like 12-1 or something in Ukraine's favor, and that was pretty good. Okay, next, overnight, a total of 23 out of 24 Shahed drones were shot down, most of them in the Kharkiv, Kherson, and the Dnipropetrovsk regions. Okay, that is a little misleading. 23 out of 24 Shaheds were shot down, but a Shahed can still do tremendous damage. Overnight into April 5, Russia's Shahed drone hit a detached home neighborhood in Kharkiv, injured a man, 45 other people, including an 8-year-old child, suffered an acute stress reaction to the attack. Okay, but that's just a drone. What were we missing? Well, Russia launched 8 missiles and nearly 70 guided aerial bombs in total, according to President Zelensky. So, yes, this showed you that 23 out of 24 Shaheds were shot down, and that's great, and I appreciate that, but you got to get the rest of the story. A big fire also, and this wasn't part of what Russia attacking Ukraine, but a big fire engulfed a warehouse on the outskirts of Russian-annexed Crimean city of Simferopol, Russian officials say. So, it's an interesting place for that fire to break out. Wonder what was going on. We just don't know. Speaking of we just don't know, 5 people were wounded and hospitalized in Russia's Belgorod after a strong blast on Saturday, officials say. About 30 residential buildings were damaged. It's unclear what caused the explosions. Russian journalists on Telegram channels speculated a bomb meant to be launched on Ukraine exploded by mistake. And the backstory to that is the governor came, so it looks like there was a guided bomb or something launched from Russia, but it hit Sevastopol instead. But the governor was just saying there was an explosion, leading people to believe that it was the Ukrainians rather than the Russians that were behind it. Okay. In other news, the Russian SU-25 fighter was shot down in Donetsk Oblast. That was early in the day yesterday, and it was verified in a number of places. Soldiers of the 110th Separate Mechanized Brigade shot down a Russian Su-25 or Su-25 fighter in Donetsk Oblast. Switching gears. Russia sentences an 18-year-old Ukrainian prisoner of war to 18 years for defending his country. I was scratching my head going, huh? Why, what? Well, he's being brought up on terrorism charges for being a soldier. Okay, now that's defying everything that we understand about the laws of war and how this works. If he was a spy in plain clothes, that's different. You know, then you're in a different category. But this young man was just being a soldier. He was a young man who was just 18 when he joined the Ukrainian National Guard's Azov Regiment and fell into Russian captivity, was charged under Russia's deeply flawed terrorism legislation. The headline states that only that a Ukrainian citizen has been convicted of taking part in the activities of a terrorist organization. Neither here nor in the first paragraph is a mention made of the fact that he is not only a military serviceman but a prisoner of war. So that's how they're treating prisoners of war, as terrorists and being sentenced to jail for 18. Like, what? Okay. All right. ISW says it's waiting for U.S. aid. Ukraine retreats from villages near Avdiivka to avoid being outflanked by Russia. Yeah, they have to. I mean, unless they have the weapons to fight back with, they simply have to pull back. Now, couple that with this. Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said his troops have taken control of 547 square kilometers or 211 square miles of territory this year in what he called Russia's new regions. So he's talking about Donetsk or Luhansk or that sort of thing. Okay, so 211 square miles were taken this year. Now, I'm not going to argue with whether that was. Maybe it was, maybe it wasn't. Let's assume that that was the case for now. We know that they've had to cede some ground. So yesterday I showed you this, and it's worth going back over again, and I'm going to connect these dots in just a moment. For this year, 111,000 seems remarkably high, but let's just look at this. Ukrainian military losses since the beginning of this year have surpassed 111,000 troops, Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu said on Friday as he started Moscow's latest estimates from the conflict. Okay, but if you just go back and look at the beginning of the year, this is January 1, Ukraine was claiming 360,000 Russian occupiers, right? And then you go to today, that's 360, here is 472. Do you want to guess what 472 minus 360 is? Because I did the math, and guess what? 112, or what he's claiming here is 111,000 troops this year. Isn't that fast? So 112. So for 112,000, they've gained 211 square miles. And so if, again, you do the math, now that's going to cost them 530 Russian soldiers off the battlefield for each square mile. It's pretty remarkable, and it's very costly. Okay, so I think and we're assuming that Shoigu is actually telling the truth here with the 211 square miles. Okay, last little bit. Russia is a prison of nations, not a country, it says Jay in Kyiv. And I think, now, I don't know that that's entirely correct. It might not be far from the truth, but let's say maybe some of these want to be here. But what could happen on the other side of this? If Russia really does break down, will some of these countries decide they don't necessarily want to be part of this anymore? Because that's a realistic possibility if Russia implodes, as it did in the beginning of the 20th century, and then again at the end of the 20th century as the Soviet Union. Eastern Ukraine, 2 videos go viral. So the first video, these people are just on a picnic, and the picnic is off in the shadow of bombing in Kharkiv. That's really remarkable. And the second one is just the long lines, the queues to get into church on Easter. It's just, it's touching. And I'll leave you with this last little bit from Anton Gurashenko, Happy Orthodox Easter. These are challenging times, but the story of Easter is a story of victory, of good over evil, life over death. The story is happening in Ukraine every day. Christ is risen. Ukraine will rise. All right. Thank you, my friends. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes. Thank you to my patrons, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.